The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus entered a village where a woman whose name was Martha welcomed him. She had a sister named Mary, who sat beside the Lord at his feet, listening to him speak. Martha, burdened with much serving, came to Jesus and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me by myself to do the serving? Tell her to help me." The Lord said to her in reply, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and worried about many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today, of course, is the memorial of the Holy Rosary. The memorial was initiated by Pope Pius V in and around 1571 because of a victory in a military battle. And I don't know, it always seems odd to me that we have these really important feasts of the Holy Rosary, Mary and the power, really, and the necessity of the Rosary, because a battle was won. Not important, I guess. Much more important is the power of the Rosary. And as you may know better than I, the Rosary really developed rather slowly over a couple of centuries. I did not know but learned that it was St. Dominic, of all people, who came up with the original idea, but then it really took some time before 2 centuries later, in the 1500s, that the Rosary came to be as we know it today. Originally, again, St. Dominic proposed something like the prayer of the Rosary that we know today as a supporter and companion with the Psalms, or priests and other religious or lay who read the Liturgy of Hours. So we recognize Mary today, and you certainly will recall when we were all younger, that when difficult things happened in the world, like World War, pray for Russia and all the pagan babies, you'll remember that. And we were, they're all adults now. And we were really invited to pray the Rosary as a family. We prayed the Rosary. We had a nook. And I guess it was nice, but you got trapped, because it was really a horseshoe. And I was the third one in. I was kind of really, I could say I was at the head, but I really was at the foot. And once you were in there were 2 or 3 people on your side. You couldn't get out. And after dinner every night, we prayed the Rosary. And that was a good thing. But it wasn't always pleasant. You know what I mean? But it bore its fruit, I think. I do hope that more and more people are praying the Rosary today because of the circumstances of war, oppression, etc. that's going on in the world. It's a powerful prayer. So that's the Mass we're offering today in honor of Mary and her intercession on our behalf as we solicit her for that very intercession. We continue with the story of Jonah. And as often as we hear these stories, really by the grace of God, hopefully, there's going to be new insights. And maybe an insight that we haven't heard recently, or not at all, is that pretty obvious that God gave Jonah a message. And in that message, there was a mission. And in that mission, there was a message for, in this case, the Ninevites. Now, if God can speak to somebody like Jonah and all the other people of the Old Testament and people into the New Testament, does God speak to you? Yeah, he does. He does. God speaks to me. He doesn't send me emails. I don't hear voices generally. Maybe in a rare occasion I'll hear a voice and you just know. But isn't it the inner intuition, that spiritual intuition, inner perception, that you just kind of know? I can think about my own vocation. I'm told, I can't think of the seventh, unless it's me. I'm the seventh priest in the Esper line over about 150 years. So I had two uncles that were priests on my dad's side, and we've been religious on both sides of the family. And so there was always that identity and being drawn, to the vocation that I have. But I never heard a voice. And of course, in those early years, I've never been able to do that. I mean, I can't learn Latin. I certainly can't learn philosophy in Latin. So I was 27 before I went to the seminary, and by the grace of God, voila. How's that working out for me? I think God's done a pretty splendid job. I won't ask you how you think about that. But I think the Lord did a really good job. Now, I heard a message, but it wasn't in words, but I kind of knew that I knew. And I was very timid and not resistant, but just timid and unknowing. How am I going to do this? But you get there hand in glove. God speaks to all of us, one way or the other. And sometimes in the oddest ways. You just know that you know. And if I can make the point clear enough, I think there's a common point between, oddly enough, this reading and the gospel today. Jonah knew he had the message. He knew the message was from God. But in this case, he was divided because he knew God and he had a relationship with God and he was a messenger of God. He already knew that. But his resentment and unforgiveness and begrudging against the Ninevites because of their violence, I'm not doing that. I don't even want you to be nice to them, God. I'd rather see you smite them. So he got in the way. But he knew that the message was in there, and somehow he knew eventually he was going to do what God called him to do. And we know that he did, after he got spit out by a fish. And then his resistance dissolved. Now, you've heard this many times. The story is not only about the conversion of the Ninevites, it's about the conversion of Jonah, so that he can be free of his unforgiveness and bitterness and resentment toward the Ninevites. And look at the great work that God did. Look at the mercy. Historically, the Ninevites, as you've heard, they were very violent people. They would conquer people and carry away the spoils. And yet, only by the grace of God, Jonah finally accepted the message, accepted the mission, shared the message, and in the course of only one day, on a 3-day journey, they changed their hearts. The people fasted. They stopped eating food and water, etc. Even got to the king. The king put aside his robes and sackcloth and ashes. God saw their hearts. And he relented on the wrath that he had proposed against them, and withhold his blazing wrath so that they shall not perish. I know, ladies, that you really love the story of Mary and Martha here. And as we've said again 100 times, there's a Mary and a Martha in all of us. This time the line kind of sticks out to me. Lord, do you not care? Jesus cares. He cares that Martha is filled with anxiety and worry and probably resentment that Mary's not helping her. Do you think, although Mary chose what Jesus says is the better part, don't you think that, I know, and I think you'll know, it wasn't a real big house, I don't think. Don't you think Mary felt or intuited the angst of heart in the air as it floated out of the kitchen? She knew Martha was in there, it was just hot. Yeah, there you are sitting there, and here I am making these Twinkies or whatever. Now it's interesting. So Mary is probably feeling a little guilty. So she chose the better part. She's listening to Jesus. She wants to hear because she loves him, but Martha loves him too. But Martha's doing what Martha does. That's Martha's thing. That's Martha's love language. And she probably gets a lot of kudos out of the nice lunch they had. But because Mary was in the other room sitting, Martha can say, well, I want what she has. Not admitting to herself that she really likes what she's doing because it's her way of love, of giving love, and it's her way of loving Jesus. And Jesus knows, Martha, if you'd calm yourself, the house isn't that big. Do what you're doing, and you can still listen and be part of it, right? I've learned that, or beginning to learn it very slowly. The things that I don't particularly care to do, eventually, I know, there's a resistance, there's a hesitation, you delay things, and okay, I got to do this, And by the time I get to where I'm going and doing it, it's like you kind of surrender, and it's like, wow, it really was a grace by the time you get to the end of it. That was Jonah. Now, he went through an awful lot, and I guess in my frame of thinking, he had to go through a lot of inner healing there. Because his relationship with God was way down because of his unforgiveness and his resentment and bitterness, because of justifiably maybe, all the violence of the Ninevites. They should have had the rosary in those days. Do you hear what I'm saying? There was something in Mary that wanted to help Martha. And there was something in Martha that wanted to have what Mary had. But they both had the same thing. Martha got in her own way. If she let the angst and the worry and the anxiety get out of the way, she could have heard what Jesus was saying, as well as the satisfaction of doing her part, fulfilling her role to prepare a meal. Should we all help each other? Of course. I hope there's something there that you can think about today. I might invite you to pray the rosary today, or at least 3 Hail Marys, a trinity of Hail Marys. We can't imagine, I don't think, the power of 3 Hail Marys. If you don't have time for the rosary, 3 Hail Marys. You can change the world. If nothing else, you can change your own heart. Thank you, St. Dominic. May God be praised. Give us your blessing through Mary, our mother, Jesus, and yours.